Okay, we'll put you through some basic updates or developing stories in the political scene. But meanwhile, finally, yes, the March 26th date for the All Progressives Congress Convention was the sure date that it's held despite the tussle experience during or before the convention. And that was expected. You know, before now, we had they had series of court cases to handle. They had different interests to, you know, bring together or come to a compromise on. But we saw, like I said before now, since the president actually intervened, since the president's intervention, a lot of things seems to be falling in place, and a lot of persons seems to be comfortable with the president's decision on certain issues within the party.
Well, in third world politics, let me narrow it down to Nigeria. These internal party wranglings are not alien to our polity. We see a lot of this, and in our climb, the president is the leader of any political party. So when it gets so tough, it always takes the intervention of the president to get things back on track.
Well, would you say they had a successful Congress? Or
Well, if I was an APC member, I would say yes.
yeah, now that you're not.
I'll say we look to see.
We'll look to see.
Yes.
Okay, now moving ahead, yeah, we've seen that the People's Democratic Party, I heard one person at some point say that they are witch hunting the All Progressives Congress, and that they didn't let that slack. They actually came up with some statement that might sound mockery, that the APC didn't actually do much. They didn't achieve much during the Congress.
You know, democracy has some beauty about it. You know, you learn every day, you keep learning every day. You know, what PDP is saying in essence is that the convention was put together by an illegal leadership. Okay, and then we've seen something like this play out. For me, I think what actually happened is PDP maybe is banking on what happened in Zamfara State.
Okay.
What happened in Zamfara State happened build up to the election during the primaries. And when the court ruled, they said the leadership in the state that produced the flag bearer of the party in the state was an illegal leadership. And as such, the APC was thrown out of office and the PDP candidate was brought in. Well, so maybe the PDP is also talking about the same thing here. And it's something I think the APC should look at. But like I always say, we look to see.
Well, we look to see. They say the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has marked the All Progressives Congress, APC, over the emergence of Senator Abdullahi Adamu as the national chairman. The main opposition party pointed out in a statement on Sunday that the new ruling party boss was arraigned in court on a 149-count charges of the alleged fraudulent award of contract and stealing of public funds estimated at 15 billion naira. Now, the statement signed by Honorable Dabo Olugunba, in the National Secretary, Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, also described the APC's weekend exercise as a jamboree in the name of the National Convention, which is further called lies, a celebration of illegality, corruption, and arrogance in failure, adding that by leadership birthed through such process can only be overly corrupt and illegal. Strong words there. Very strong terms.
The PDP.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful how Nigerians use these words: corruption, illegality, and all of that. But, well, like I said, eventually, if the PDP will follow through going to court and all of that, the court will truly say if indeed there is illegality, and for the charges they say the new APC chairman has dangling on his neck, still the court and the EFCC, I'm sure, will know what to do about that.
Well, this is contrary to what the president said at some point during this process, because I recall when former governor of Imo State, Roger Sokorocha, actually declared his interest to join the presidential race. The president said that they wouldn't support any candidate that had some sort of cases with the EFCC. And now we have seen the emergence of Abdullahi Adamu as the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress. And from what the PDP is saying, they say he has corruption charges. Perhaps, maybe, I don't know. What this is actually in contrast with what the president said.
Okay, well, what I cannot make certain of is, are these just allegations or are they before the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission? Is it something someone just said, oh, this man, from our findings, we think he has stolen our money to the tune of 15 billion naira. Is it a case before the EFCC? And if it is something before the EFCC, then we can actually hold the president accountable for what he said. We could actually remind him, Your Excellency, look, you said you would not support any aspiration from anyone who has a case with the EFCC. Why is there a different rule being played out here? So
Wow.
till then, since I can't make certain if it is actually a case before the EFCC, I can't judge the president's statement.
No, absolutely. We are in no place to judge the public space is there, and of course the Nigerian judiciary is there. And one other thing is that the Nigerian judiciary, it is something that we should look out for, because at some point the Nigerians have lost some sort of confidence in the judiciary system. I recall when the High Court in Abuja ruled against Governor Debumahi on account of defection, and the statement he made, he was outrightly saying he's not going to obey that court order. The court lacks the capacity to the capacity to sack him as a governor, and he meted some unspoken words against the Nigerian judiciary, which of course the Nigerian Bar Association did not take lightly. And now we're still talking about going back to the judiciary. I mean, we are the ones saying this is not reliable, and we're still falling back to them. I mean, we're going back and forth with these things.
Okay, well, for me, I think what happened there was just a burst of emotions. Yeah, you know, there's something very sweet about power and thinking you're about losing it all. You know, so I think, I'm just saying, I'm not saying it was.
Yeah.
So I am just thinking that it was just an emotional outburst, but it is believed that leaders at that level should be emotionally intelligent, not to be misled by their emotions to say things. And like you said, you know, even after such outbursts, you realize that the judiciary is still the last resort. You just have to go back to the judiciary. So that's just where it is.
Well, moving away from that real quickly, on another development in the state, within the country, as the case may be, we find out that aside from Abdullahi Adamu becoming the National Secretary, Wike, of all people, now has created a buzz in Nigeria because of his declaration of interest to join the presidential race under the People's Democratic Party. And he announced this in Makadi, Benue State. He told PDP stakeholders gathering on Sunday that he wants to be next president in Nigeria. One thing about this particular governor is that he's extremely vocal. Of recent, I heard one of our guests mention that he has been a fighting personality from inception when he was the chairman in one of the local government areas in Rivers State. And of course he has carried through that character all through his career, and I don't know how that will play out, or if this is the missing link that Nigeria needs to get fixed.
You know, the thing is, when you have a formula that has always worked for you, you know, you want to carry on through life with it. Maybe perhaps until it fails, but till then, you know, you keep up with what's winning. Meanwhile, as a follow-up to the event in Cross River State, some aspirants of the PDP are already picking up forms to run for the State House of Assembly elections.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are aware it is a ripple effect of the Umahi judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and since the court has barred some of those assembly members, we've even heard scramblings by Ben Ayade, unconfirmed, to return to the PDP to avoid being sacked by like David Umahi.
Yeah.
Because even though the case hasn't gone up to the Supreme Court yet, you know, nobody wants to take chances.
That Umahi might have a soft landing, but for the case in Cross River State, the case of Governor Ben Ayade, I think it's more critical than it is, because about 17 lawmakers plus the speaker joined him to defect to the All Progressives Congress. Now, this is what happens. There's a provision in law that would sack lawmakers that defect on such account, because they had really no reason to defect. The only provisions provided by the Constitution is if there is a faction or a merger within the party that would allow them to merge. But in this case, that wasn't it. And of course, the People's Democratic Party, who are always watching the All Progressives Congress, they are every move to see what they could pick on and make something out of. They are at it again, and they were all sued. And of course, as of last week, the State House of Assembly in Cross River State was being barricaded by security personnel. And we could see that a lot of persons have already picked up forms to replace the 17 lawmakers that defected, plus the speaker. And you know what that means? If that happens, if the PDP replaces all those positions, because about 20-something lawmakers are there, chances are that the governor will be impeached regardless of the court ruling, because once they have the 17 lawmakers plus the speaker from the People's Democratic Party and they are able to assess the State House of Assembly, impeachment is inevitable at that point.
You know, that's an angle I've never actually looked at. Come to think of it, you know, if the court follows through with all of this to the highest level of the court, and then even if the governor is saved at the end of the day, that's a dimension I never looked. He could be impeached.
He could be impeached.
Could be impeached.
And that's the shortest possible means
of getting
out of the office.
And also, you know, something that beats my imagination is this law has always been there. Okay? This law has always been there. And people have been defecting to one side and from that side back to where they defected from. And nothing has ever happened. But, you know, it's the beauty of democracy.
Yeah.
We keep learning from our mistakes.
Well, I would say the People's Democratic Party are playing the opposition in the real sense of the word, because the checks and balances are there. Now, in the All Progressives Congress, they're a little bit more careful with what they're doing, knowing that they're always being watched by the opposition. And every of their move, I recall, I think Senator Roger Sokorocha mentioning on one of his interview sessions that he's happy that if the PDP actually mocked them for achieving consensus or a successful party convention, it means they are doing well. Because coming from the PDP, if they're not doing well, they will be pressed. And if they're doing well, they will be mocked. Like you said, it's as if they were just waiting for it. Now, who wouldn't take such opportunity?
You know, these are the kind of things that happen and someone says, thank God. Yoruba person will say, oh, well, like, see opportunity. You know, in the course of, I believe in the course of their stewardship, the ones that have been sacked by the court, they must have stepped on many toes. So it's an opportunity to leverage. So it could be an opportunity for some people.
It's always the case. And back home in Akwa Ibom State, yeah, trust politicians. Talking about leveraging on opportunities, a lot of persons have resigned from the incumbent cabinet of Governor Udom Emmanuel in Akwa Ibom State, and following that, some commissioner designate names were forwarded to the State House of Assembly, you know, approved, and then swearing in was done in the evening of Friday. And following that swearing in of 6 new commissioners today, on Friday, of course, His Excellency the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Governor Udom Emmanuel, members of the State Executive Council have been assigned the following portfolios. The first person on that is Okoisi Udom, is a son, Ministry of Justice and Attorney General. Samonde Bonko, Ministry of Youth and Sports. I think he has been there back to back.
I think this one's retained their positions.
Yes, of course. Mr. Charles Udor, he has always been in the Ministry of Information, Ministry of Environment and Solid Minerals, and he's still there. And of course, Professor Augustine Vincent, Mr. Nsikak Linus, Ministry of Finance, Professor Augustine Vincent Umor, Ministry of Health, Dr. Imo Moffat, Ministry of Science and Technology, Comrade Nyemo Bongesian, Ministry of Information and Strategy, Mrs. Idon Siribora Tebet, Ministry of Education. Pretty much every person's returning back to their post. Yeah. Honorable Omar Sen, Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Honorable Frank Archibald, Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. Right Honorable Chief Umoitem Umar, Ministry of Transport. Otwekong Raphael Basi, Ministry of Housing. Dr. Inyakwa Adiakman, Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Welfare, Dr. John gems at Ministry of Power and Petroleum. Time will fail us to dwell on this, but this is some of the names of the
No, I
persons
think
that.
I think the new commissioners come from number 17. That's
Okay, Inyabong
Nyebong Edward
Edward Ekong,
Ekong.
Ministry of Lands and Water Resources.
Yeah, I think he's replacing the
Honorable Moino,
yes, he's
Pastor
replacing
Moino.
Pastor Moino.
And of course, Bob Outmore, a Ministry of Economic Development and
Development.
Ibom Dipsipo, which is of course replacing Honorable Akano Kun.
No, I think the Ministry of Economic Development got served a memo from the office of the SSG. I think the governor is taking away the deep sea port and focusing it elsewhere. And I think Bob Almonemem replaces Mr. Akanokun.
Sure, absolutely. Yes. Then Anyefok Isaac Nkom, Ministry of Labor and Manpower Planning, Basi Bob Okun, and many others who have been on that list. And it's pretty much a little bit of cabinet reshuffling plus a little addition of some of the names that some of the persons that resigned before now. And that is the much we can take on this update. We're going to short time out. When we return, we'll be back to talk about the APC convention, how it went down, and the way forward. What are we expecting? Join us after this time out. You're welcome back. The show is still Political Spectrum, reaching you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. And of course, I said on this part, we'll be taking a look at the APC, the just concluded APC National Convention that held on Saturday, 26. You know, there were a lot of insinuations that the date might be, you know, extended or postponed again. It's been a controversial convention for them, and finally they're over and done with, but not without leaving some footprints that Nigerians will still make reference to, one of which is the time with which they were able to start the convention. Now, this is an event that was built to start by 10 a.m. and then delegates and accreditation was supposed to start by 1 p.m. And we saw that up until 5 p.m., they were not still ready. They were not still through with accreditation. And the information that we had is that accreditation was done at two different points, two different venues, because of the number of delegates. They have about 7,000 and all of that. But then one critical issue is how they were able to achieve their consensus arrangement, because up until into some hours, the late hours, 8 p.m. into the convention, there was no unity list made available. That being the case, it means that they were not able to negotiate with the different parties involved to come up with a proper consensus arrangement. And it has been one of the aftermath, I would say, of that particular convention.
Well, you know, while people would be talking about the time the convention actually got to start having been built for 10 a.m., I would even say let's even be glad that it even held. We've seen in the past where the parties had slated a date for their convention, and few hours to the commencement of the convention, there is a court ruling that the convention can't go on. So, well, it's good that that didn't happen in the case of the APC. And, well, I want to believe that part of the delay may have been because of the several negotiations that may have been happening behind the scene. You know, it's not easy from a multitude of people who want the same thing. How do you convince them to step down for just this one person? You know, so
but that a lot of people will argue that that is a decision that should have been done before 26th of March. I mean, what were they doing? This convention was refixed about a month since February 26th, which was supposed to be the date for the convention, and pushed forward to March 26th. They had an ample time to have, you know, dialogue, held meeting upon meetings to come up with a proper arrangement for consensus.
Time, yes, ample time. Maybe no, because they had a lot of things on their plates. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
there was the internal tussle, who is the chairman. There was Bonny on one side and the Niger governor on one side, and governors taking sides, political leaders within the APC taking sides. And we saw the whole lot of Royal Rumble and a whole lot of
It
things.
did. Royal
So
Rumble.
it did not leave room for that alone to be done. You know, they had to take care of that before looking at the interests. And so it wouldn't just have been possible for consensus to have been reached on all the offices prior to that day.
Of course, there's no way they would have reached a consensus. But one thing is certain, one question that is burning in the minds of a lot of Nigerians out there is, why is the APC so afraid of a democratic process? Why are they restricting themselves? I know it's constitutional, but then why are they restricting themselves to a consensus candidate? Why? I mean, you have delegates already. You have the ballots there. Why don't you allow people to stand in for elections?
Well, unlike religious people, politicians do not like to leave things to chance. Yeah. So if you feel that if you leave this process in a certain way, it might go in the favor of the interest that goes against your interest. Of course, you want to tighten the noose. And if consensus is what will work for the powers that be, why not?
Well, so it's safer to go stick with the consensus.
Not on a general scale, but for those that really matter in the party, who actually have the final say. By that, I'm sure you understand what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, this convention actually saw through the emergence of Abdullahi Adamu as the consensus candidate for the national chairman position and the new national chairman of the ruling All Progressives Council, Progressives Congress. Here's a brief profile of him. He was born in Kafi, Nasarawa State, on July 23rd, 1946. He attended Abdu Zanga Primary School, Kafi, and completed it at the Lamiga Senior Primary School in 1959. He moved to the government secondary school Makadi, Benue State between 1960 and 1962, and thereafter to the government technical college, Bakuru, Plateau State from 1962 to 1965. Mr. Adamu obtained his Ordinary National Diploma (OND) in Building and Civil Engineering from Kaduna Polytechnic in 1968 and the Higher National Diploma from the same institution in 1971. He had worked as a maintenance supervisor at National Electric Power Authority before returning for his HND. Well, it has when he left school, Mr. Adamu worked with the Northern Nigerian Development Corporation (NDDC) in Kaduna before moving to the private sector. He became a consultant area manager with AEK, a firm of consultants. He was appointed as the executive secretary to the just-based Benue Plateau Construction Company, and Mr. Adamu, popularly called the Bridge, began his political career in 1977 when he was elected a member of the Constituent Assembly with drafted the 1979 Constitution. Well, you will recall he's also a former governor of Nasarawa State, and
Yes.
he has held, they say he has the experience. A lot of persons are concerned with his age, above 70. Now, would you say that is the age of a person that has an enormous task ahead? Because in as much as they have successfully held the National Convention, you would agree that there's still a lot of work to be done within the party. Now, the task ahead is to settle all the aggrieved parties that have been aggrieved based on the consensus arrangement they came up with at the dying minutes. And now one person had an outburst even at the event. I'm talking about Emeka. He actually cried. He has suffered for the party. Nduka,
who
yes.
vied for the office of National Welfare Officer of the APC. Well, you see, since you were talking about Abdullahi Adamu and you mentioned age, it gives me a sense of deja vu, because I recall in 2013 when former President Jonathan was able to get a septuagenarian like Abdullahi Adamu, and that's in the person of Bamanga Toko, who is also a former governor like
Adamu.
Abdullahi Adamu himself, and then he was able to muster consensus. Of course, he was the president of the day who had just emerged from the victory of 211, and everybody was trying to fall in line. So he got Bamanga Toko, and the feeling by the governors then was that he looked down on them because of their age. Of course, some of them were teenagers when he was the governor of, I think then Gombe State, is it? Yes, I think old Gombe State. And so when it was time for him to go, the governor said, look, we can't bear this anymore. I think in one of the occasions, a governor was suspended because he didn't take or return the calls of then PDP National Chairman Bamanga Toko. And at some point, the governor couldn't bear it anymore, and they said Bamanga Toko must go. So looking at the dynamics, which is almost the same, if not the same, I just hope Adamu Abdullahi doesn't end like Bamanga Toko. But like I always like to say, we'll look to see.
The truth of the matter is, the All Progressives Congress, we've had series of their chairman, national chairman. They've always gone, would I say, perhaps in shame, for lack of a better word, because unceremoniously. Because if you recall, throughout the event, not much reference was made to their previous chairman, except during Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's speech, where he actually had to recognize Adams Oshiomhole, the immediate past, because since his exit from the national chairman position, I think this is the first time they want to replace him officially. What we had was a caretaker committee that was quite controversial, and one would wonder why such an event, now you're trying to replace someone that left, and not much reference, not even one was made with reference to the commitment that Adams Oshiomhole put in, the work that he put in to ensure that power, the APC returned power as at that time. But from what you said, we hope and pray like we are, because we are prayerful people in Nigeria.
Well, you see, about the absence of reference to past chairmen, pundits say, what people have observed, and well, for some people, they say it's because Tinubu has decided to move from kingmaker to become a king himself. You would realize that prior to now, Tinubu had always been part and parcel of the process that produces the chairman of the APC, from Bisi Akande to John Odige and Adams Oshiomhole. But we see a situation where people say the Tinubu camp was not taken into account in the whole concession process. Some people even say the entire concession thing was to block out the Tinubu part of the structure.
I wouldn't want to agree so, because the president held a meeting with key founding fathers of the All Progressives Congress before the National Convention. And from what former governor of Imo State, Roger Sokorocha, said, he said all the founding fathers were quite comfortable and very much at peace with the president's spoken.
Have you spoken to the founding fathers? Yeah, exactly. That's just the position of, that's just the statement from one person. I do not know if he has the mandate to speak on behalf of the founding fathers, of course. So, but it's before us. We'll watch as things unfold.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have to take into account how the APC came to be. A merger of three parties at the time, the CPC, ANPP, and the AD. And I think, okay, at that time had metamorphosed into the ACN. So we've had tussles within the party structure, with some people saying the CPC is getting more. Some people are saying the ACN is being pushed out, and a whole lot of things. So these are all things put together that would play out the dynamics of what we will see build up to 2023. So, but like you've said, that the APC has a record of chairmen leaving unceremoniously. We hope that this won't be the case.
We watch and hope, and you sure know that we are going to keep our eyes on that spec to bring you updates as it happens in the political scene. But this is where we would like to call it a day on today's edition of Political Spectrum. That was our show. My name is Otto Basitam.
And I'm Jolly Eden.
Have a nice day.